care to mingle with me, Mr. Todd?
Miss Cassidy, excluding Victor's performance, mingling with you may well turn out to be the highlight of the evening.
I just love Frenchmen.
Oh, so do I.
Oh, God, how I miss these conversations. Next to sex, dishing with the girls is the best thing I know.
The truth is, I have gotten into a lot of different scenes. I'm a writer. I have to open myself up to new things.
Why don't you just say it?
I'm gay.
That's something you never used to hear in the movies. Until recently, Hollywood movies didn't dare portray openly homosexual characters in a serious manner. But in the last few years, and especially in the last few months, there's been something of a boom in a number of movies about people who are gay, and that's the subject of this special edition of Sneak Previews. Across the aisle from me is Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune.
And this is Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times. The treatment of homosexual characters has been, as Roger mentioned, pathetic in Hollywood movies. Gay characters traditionally have had only two options in movies. They either wound up unhappy souls who committed suicide or were murdered because of their sexual preferences. The plain and simple message from Hollywood: gay people either kill themselves or will be killed. And that's not just a catchphrase. Between 1962 and 1978, according to research by film scholar Vito Russo in his important book, The Celluloid Closet, there were 28 films that dealt with gay subjects. And out of those 28 films, in no less than 22 of them, the gay characters either killed themselves or were murdered by poison, drowning, hanging, or electrocution. That doesn't even include Suddenly Last Summer, where it was cannibalism. In addition to the inevitable fate of violent death, gay characters in movies were turned into stereotypes with affected mannerisms. So it all comes down to this: Hollywood either ignored homosexuals or killed them off or turned them into prancing stereotypes.
In 1969 and 1970, there were two important watershed films that presented characters who were frankly homosexual. Staircase was the first one. It starred Richard Burton and Rex Harrison as limp-wristed gay lovers. And in this scene, they're leaving for a Sunday outing when a lover's quarrel erupts.
I've had 30 turgid years with you, Harold. Turgid. And for once I crave a bright staccato remark instead of the dingy inference of an oncoming amen. I said I'd try, you carping swine! All this is vengeance, pure and simple. You won't be helped, you won't be told, and splash your troubles at everyone.
This is you we're describing, mate. Have you seen yourself, have you? Look like a pregnant hen. Look at your hips. Have you seen your hips? Far too wide for a man. A real man has great broad whippers with tapered to powerful flanks.
Burton is wearing that bandage under his helmet because he's trying to grow new hair on his bald head. I wonder if Hollywood would have dared to make Staircase at all without the insurance of casting two famously macho leading men in the major roles. If you really pay attention to that scene, I think you'll notice a sudden hidden message in the acting. Burton and Harrison are providing a self-mocking edge to their performance to clue us in that their characters may be gay, but they themselves are certainly not gay. And that was the real joke in the movie version of Staircase. I think it ruined the film. A year later, another movie, The Boys in the Band, did a better job of portraying homosexuals as characters who had more than one human dimension. As a matter of fact, The Boys in the Band was the first Hollywood movie in which all of the principal characters were gay. The movie used a birthday party as a device for exploring several different homosexual lifestyles.
This old college friend of mine is in town, and he's on his way over here for a quick drink on his way to dinner someplace. But now look, he's straight.
Straight? If he's the one I met, he's about as straight as the yellow brick road.
Oh, you met Justin Stewart.
I don't remember meeting anybody named Justin Stewart.
Well, of course you don't, dope. I met him.
Well, this is somebody else.
Yeah, Alan McCarthy, a very close, total stranger.
Now, it's not that I care what he would think of me, really. It's just that he's not ready for it, and he never will be. You understand that, don't you, Hank?
Yeah, sure.
Do you honestly believe he doesn't know about you?
Well, if there's the slightest suspicion, he's never let on one bit.
What's he had, a lobotomy? What about all those weekends up from school?
Well, I still wasn't out. I was still in the Christ was I drunk last night syndrome.
Oh. Man, was I drunk last night. Christ, I don't remember a thing.
The Boys in the Band from 1970, that was a good movie. I think it made my list of the best films of 1970. If Staircase was flawed by its stars making fun of their roles, though, the trouble with The Boys in the Band was a little more complicated, thinking about it 10 years, 12 years later. It was a good movie, it was entertaining, it was emotionally effective, but the plot mechanism was so creaky it seemed to come right out of one of those World War II movies where you had a typical squadron and one of everybody, the Italian American, the Indian, the farm boy, the guy from the Bronx. And the boys in the band at that birthday party had one of everyone, too. The characters were assigned predictable personalities, predictable problems. The movie unfolded like clockwork. Might have been better if it had allowed those characters to develop spontaneously like people instead of like case studies.
Well, I think it's a terrific film. I thought it then, and I still think it now. A film that is first of its kind, and this was certainly the case based on Mark Crowley's play, I think deserves a lot of credit. And I don't like the revisionist theory that says, well, now we're smarter, so therefore we got to dump on this thing. It was great then at its time.
Yeah, but I think we can go back and we can see what they were doing. I think they were very uncertain as to how general audiences, and this was intended as a general picture, were going to relate to the fact that everybody on the screen was a homosexual man. And so I think they were saying that we can borrow from old conventions, from old genres, that we can give people a predictable way to relate to these characters. We can sell it even to the audience that we privately think is never going to understand this picture.
Yeah, but it was, of course, based on a play that had been written a couple of years ago. The other thing that I think is you are absolutely right on Staircase. It's very interesting. These actors, Harrison and Burton, wanted to show that they were manly, and it interferes, you're right, with the characters. And you know, in this book, The Celluloid Closet, he also mentions that no actor has ever come forward and publicly stated that he was a homosexual. They are so uptight about this subject in Hollywood that it even extends to the actors talking about their own lives. We're dealing with some very cruel parodies here.
I think in all fairness, you ought to say the play was also written with the same things in mind that the movie was directed as.
Okay. Lately, there has been a renewed interest in gay films, or at least films about gays. A key film in the development of this interest was a 1980 murder mystery called Cruising, directed by William Friedkin, the same man who directed The Boys in the Band. This film caused a firestorm of protests in the gay community even before filming was completed. Gay activists protested the cruel stereotyping of the gay community because Cruising, focused exclusively on one segment of the gay world, the tough leather bars, as the site of a series of gruesome murders. Al Pacino, a straight cop in the film, is assigned to infiltrate this world and act as bait for the murderer. And he goes to a gay leather bar undercover looking for information.
The guy by the pinball machine. The guy with the eagle on his jacket.
Oh, yeah, his name's Skip Lee. He's a bad dude. The other night he got stoned out, came onto a guy at the Eagle's Nest. The guy gave him a swerve. Skip went for his throat. Leave him alone. He's a scumbag.
Hey, baby, what's happening? I'm with someone.
Aren't we all?
Want to dance?
Cruising bombed badly at the box office, perhaps partly because of the gay protest while it was being filmed. And the protest served notice that the gay world was organized now, and powerful, and conceivably could support a movie that showed gay characters in a favorable, if not realistic light, and kill a movie that portrayed them unfavorably. A lot of power. And such a film did come about in the fall of 1981, a West German film, Taxi Zum Klo, Taxi to the Toilet, that portrayed gay life in a more sexually explicit way than ever before in a mainstream movie. It was a story of a gay school teacher who, like so many people, was having trouble remaining faithful to the one person who truly loved him.
Was möchtest du für ein Stück haben?
Was willst du denn schon sehen, was ich haben möchte? Ich fällt mir schon eins nehmen.
Mein Gott, jetzt habe ich mir extra so viel Mühe gegeben.
Oh, das ist genau das, was mich aufregt, dass du dir immer so eine Mühe gibst. Mensch, ich hab schon, was meinst du, wie viele Leute in der letzten Zeit ich deinetwegen nicht besucht habe, nur weil wir uns ständig hier zurückziehen und du mich mästest wie ein Schwein?
Na mein Gott, dann koche ich eben gar nicht mehr.
Bernd, Mensch, das ist doch nicht die Frage, gar nicht mehr zu kochen, aber diese blöde Regelmäßigkeit, mit der du mich jeden Abend hier empfängst und betust und bemachst, das halte ich wirklich nicht aus. Ich möchte entscheiden, wann ich komme und wann ich esse und wann ich gehe.
Die Beziehung ist eben was Regelmäßiges. Anders geht es gar nicht zu machen, dass du das nicht verstehst.
Taxi Zum Klo was a favorable, matter-of-fact portrayal that was well received by critics and by the general audiences that took a chance on it. Cruising, however, was an unfavorable portrayal, and it was rejected. And another key film in the development of the current interest in gay films now was Cage Aux Folles, a French comic farce about two older gay men, one a feminine type, one more masculine. And in the funniest scene in the movie, the strong man, played by Ugo Tognazzi, tries to teach his effeminate friend to walk like John Wayne. They're going to a dinner party later and are trying to pass as straight.
Non, 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 non.
Qu'est-ce que j'ai fait?
Mais qu'est-ce que c'est que cette façon de marcher?
Qu'est-ce qu'il y a?
Marche comme ça ce soir et adieu Berthe.
Qu'est-ce qu'elle m'a fait?
Viens ici, viens ici.
Hein? Qu'est-ce que tu veux?
Essaie de marcher comme John Wayne.
Le cow-boy?
Oui.
Oh.
John Wayne, tu descends de cheval, tu t'avances vers le saloon, envoie valser la porte et crac. Tu peux essayer.
Que je fasse John Wayne?
C'est ça.
Eh ben alors.
Ça, c'est John Wayne, jeune fille.
Fabulous. Cage Aux Folles was a huge hit, the best-selling foreign-language film ever released in this country, and its success, together with the failure of Cruising, had a profound effect, I think, on the movies we're now seeing a year or two later.
I want to ask you about one point that you made. You said that the gay protest against Cruising led to its collapse at the box office, and that it indicated that the gay community was strong, they could support movies they liked, and they could kind of put the kibosh on movies they didn't like. I don't think that's what happened with Cruising. I think the gay protest against that movie peaked while the movie was still being shot. When it opened very strong at the box office its first week, and it fell off because it was a bad movie.
That helped too. There's no question about that. But I think that the protests affected the way the film actually was released, with cautionary remarks in the beginning and with editing changes. And I think that they really did affect the way that film looked, and because it looked so bad, it failed.
Well, I feel that with the films like Cage Aux Folles and Personal Best and Making Love, that what we have are movies that are succeeding, generally speaking, with the whole spectrum of audiences because they're good or because they're popular.
Okay.
Making Love not being so good. Taxi Zum Klo was an artistic and critical success, but Cage Aux Folles was the movie that opened Hollywood's eyes because audiences all over Middle America were lining up to see it, and nobody seemed to be particularly offended when they came out of the theater. So it was time to gear up the Hollywood dream machine and test the audiences with some homegrown movies about homosexuals. And the first one that was released was Making Love, which came out in late winter of this year and did very well at the box office with the story of a man who leaves his wife for another man. Michael Onkeen is the doctor who's discovered he's not straight, and Harry Hamlin plays the novelist he has an affair with. And in this scene, they have a lover's quarrel about honesty.
Honest? Oh, you're a great one to talk about being honest.
What do you mean?
Forget it.
No, I want to know what you mean by that.
All right. What are you doing here?
What am I doing? You invited me. I'm here because I want to be here.
Right, but you're not gay or anything, are you? I mean, you're just curious, right?
Yeah, I'm curious. So what?
Well, I'm getting sick of all this curiosity. I mean, it's so convenient.
What are you talking about? What, because I didn't like your outline?
I'm just getting sick of all the games you're playing. I mean, first you're here, then you're back to your wife. Why don't you just admit it instead of running away?
Me running away? I'm not out there every night cruising bus terminals for a little validation and then taking off before anybody gets too close.
At least I know who I am, and I'm not afraid to admit it.
I don't know about you, but that dialogue sounds real written to me, as if somebody were behind it at a typewriter, and the way they declaim the dialogue. What do you mean by this? You know what I mean, with their arms and so forth. Doesn't really ring true. Making Love, though, made a lot of money. It's still in release in some cities, and audiences were sending Hollywood the message that films about gays were not necessarily box office poison. I wish I could have sent a message, too, asking if anybody read the script before they made the movie, because the characters in Making Love talk in unbelievably overwrought, self-dramatizing, soap opera cliches. We can't really believe half the things they say because of how they sound. Still, from a historical perspective, Making Love is an important film, a groundbreaker. It opened up mainstream movies for an entire minority group. You could call it the Guess Who's Coming to Dinner of gay films.
I thought it was a terrific movie because I thought that every single emotion that it was describing, maybe the dialogue was a little too neat, but every single emotion, the confusion, a woman's unwillingness to see that her husband, the reason why he may not have been sleeping with her is because he'd rather be sleeping with men. Things as basic as this, I thought, were all covered in this movie. And in its own way, I thought that, like the way you describe Boys in the Band as sort of a checklist kind of character thing, that this film had gotten through and done its own checklist of many issues that weren't just involved with gay characters alone. So I think in its historical way, it is, as you say, quite important.
I'll tell you one thing about Making Love. It made me like Taxi Zum Klo more than I did when I first saw it. Remember when we first reviewed it, I said, that this movie has some very unsavory things in it, and it shows that the characters in it are not all that mentally healthy, in my opinion. Well, later on, thinking about it and looking at this film, which was so sanitized, with such noble, almost laundered characters in it, I felt that the nice thing about Taxi was that the director of the film was honest enough to really tell the truth about himself, including the bad parts.
Well, there's no way we're going to ever believe that we're going to agree on making love, because
No,
I think it has, as I said, a lot of fine things to it. The emancipation of homosexual characters on film has extended now to lesbians, and Personal Best is an excellent sports drama which tells the story of one woman athlete, Patrice Donnelly, befriending another younger athlete played by Mariel Hemingway. What is striking about the movie and this scene is its casual matter-of-factness in showing affection between two women.
I told you, Tingloff kept me late and the market was closed.
Couldn't you have managed?
Well, I told him I had to get you some packing boxes.
Yeah, well, I had to sell our books and pick up the laundry and make sure the phone wasn't disconnected since you're staying. What about Lucky's?
They didn't have any.
They didn't have any?
That's right.
Lucky's didn't have any boxes of any kind?
Not empty ones. Okay, it does bother you. I'll tell Tingloff tomorrow. I won't do pentathlon. It doesn't mean that much to me. I swear it.
That doesn't bother me. Maybe it's change. Maybe it's not seeing you for 6 weeks.
The lesbian relationship there is built on mutual affection and need and protectiveness, all of which is secondary really to the main thrust of this movie, which is mostly about competition and a young woman growing up as a person and as an athlete. And when a movie treats a relationship between two women as something less than shocking, that really marks a change in Hollywood films.
This was an interesting film for me to see. We talked about this also when we reviewed it on Sneak Previews. I walked into the film, for some reason, not knowing that it was going to be about a love affair between two women. And as I was watching it at the beginning, I thought if they were going to be honest, these two people would fall in love.
Because you could see right away that they were attracted to each other.
Yes, and when the movie was honest, it was so refreshing to me, then I went ahead through the entire movie thinking, this is an extraordinary film, no matter what it's about. It is so perceptive in showing these two people, which is really what we're looking for, I think, in a lot of good movies.
I think this is another landmark film, just the reason I mentioned, that it makes their relationship secondary to the story. It's done matter-of-factly, and when you can do that, I don't know any minority group that isn't exactly what they want.
Exactly.
Just treat us naturally and tell our stories, and what we are in particular, make it secondary.
And in terms of the audience, that's what we want too. One of the reasons we go to the movies is to find out about people, to introduce ourselves to new people who are in the movies. And speaking of that, here's a movie that doesn't do that. Another new movie this year about homosexuals. It's called Partners. It seems to be recycled out of old TV cop shows. It steals its insights about human nature from I Love Lucy. The movie stars Ryan O'Neal as a straight cop and John Hurt, who played the Elephant Man, as a gay cop. They're assigned to live together as a homosexual couple to conduct an undercover murder investigation, and in this scene, O'Neal comes home to find a housewarming party going on.
I don't know what you've been doing, but I haven't been wasting my time. See that blonde kid? He lived with the victim for 2 years, and he has not told the police everything either.
Did he tell you he lived with Davis? Yes. You got him to talk. Well, that's pretty good. What else did he say?
Nothing. We were interrupted.
Well, you're on to something. Now, stay with him. Come on. Stop playing with those damn glasses. Go on, get out there.
No.
Why not? What's the matter, Kerwin? Nothing. Then go talk to him. Why the hell not?
Because he asked me to dance.
The plot idea in Partners is about the same as in Cruising. They go undercover to try to solve a gay murder. You could almost call this movie Cruising played for laughs. Although Partners has gay characters in it, the film somehow doesn't quite seem to be about gays. Not really. It takes its gay characters and places them into situation comedy arenas. Indeed, Partners sometimes seems to be almost two different movies. It wants to be a sensitive exploration of a friendship between two men with comic overtones, but it turns out to be a recycled retread of ancient cop and roommate movies. We can see every gag half a block away.
You know, this too, though, is sort of a landmark film in a way.
Okay.
And that is that when you get a revolution in films, and when you get a whole bunch of gay films, you know what you're going to get? The rotten gay film. And this film shows we're getting every kind. We're getting good ones and lousy ones. Films with no understanding, and that is what this is. This is like a 40-year-old picture. It's crazy. They're only making it because they think it's a hot subject.
I totally agree.
Okay. And there's been another bit of fallout from the new emphasis on gay movies, and that is that we are now regularly getting mainstream movies with supporting characters who just happen to be gay. In a recent movie, Deathtrap, Christopher Reeve and Michael Caine are lovers and live together in the country as playwrights.
Where the hell were you?
Well, where the hell were you?
I thought you hadn't heard me. So I ambled round through the dappled day. I thought you might like one of these.
I had a sudden craving, as in the commercials.
From you soon enough.
In Only When I Laugh, James Coco played Marcia Mason's loyal friend.
Still be cute looking.
Oh, God, how I miss these conversations. Next to sex, dishing with the girls is the best thing I know.
Hey, let's all go out to dinner tonight. I have an overwhelming desire to see a young, good-looking waiter.
Who doesn't?
And this spring, we received what may be the capper on the sexual revolution in movies, and that is Blake Edwards' sex farce, Victor Victoria, which says, in essence, that all sexual labels and poses, gay and straight, are a bit silly. And that point is made by none other than Julie Andrews, the model of traditionalism.
Andre Cassel is the biggest agent in Paris. If I'm the greatest, why hasn't he heard of me?
You're the greatest, but you're unknown, except in Poland.
Poland?
You're Count Krasinski, Polish aristocrat. And you speak very little English.
Oh, now, wait a minute.
We met in Warsaw, fell in love, and I brought you to Paris.
Now, hold it.
What's wrong?
What's wrong? What's right? A woman pretending to be a man, pretending to be a woman?
Ridiculous.
It's preposterous.
In fact, it's so preposterous no one would ever believe it.
And when Julie Andrews and Robert Preston both get the message, then you know that we are dealing with mainstream films in which sexual roles have changed quite a bit.
It's a real good movie, and like a lot of the other movies we've talked about, it's been doing very well at the box office. For a long time, Hollywood simply didn't admit that homosexuals existed. They were just not there in the movies, or they were not identified or not acknowledged. Now that closet door is open, and now there have been several successful movies about gays, and there are probably going to be a lot more. Sometimes I suppose these movies will be trash, sometimes maybe they'll be masterpieces. Homosexual characters are just going to have to take their chances along with everyone else, and at least now the movies have acknowledged the existence of a lot of men and women who until the last few years could never hope to see themselves on the screen.
You are optimistic about the future. You know what? I'm worried that just like films about Vietnam were trendy, and as we talked about once here before, films about black people were trendy, it would not surprise me if gay people in movies became a 1980, 81, 82 kind of subject and were tossed away. It wouldn't surprise me.
Only the future is going to show. I don't give up even on Vietnam movies and movies about blacks, even though we did a sneak previews on the rise and fall of the black film. I believe that good movies are going to be able to find an audience no matter what they're about, and that's probably what we're talking about.
Yeah, I just wonder if anybody's going to want to make them. I hope that they aren't so single-minded in Hollywood to think that, well, this was hot this year, we won't do it again.
Well, I hope not.
Okay. That's all for this special program. Join us next time on Sneak Previews, and until then, we'll see you at the movies.
Funding for Sneak Previews was provided by this station and by other public television stations.